One great thing about football is that you can play it at any size, whether you are 5'1" or 6'8". It's not like the NBA where you have to be 6'5" just to be a small power forward. In today's video, I go over the best players in the history of the NFL that are 5'7" tall. First off, this is someone that you have definitely heard of, and that is beienemy. You might not have known that he was that small or that he played in the NFL. So he was 5'7" and almost 200 pounds when he played, and he was a very decent running back. I know if you see him today, he does have a decent sized tummy.
What the hell, Charles?
But back in the day, he was pretty athletic. He played in the NFL for 9 years. He spent time with the Chargers, the Bengals, and the Philadelphia Eagles. He was never the starting running back for any of these teams, but he was a steady, consistent backup who could also catch the ball. He just wasn't the big ticket running back on the team. Up next is Joe Morris, who was 5'7", 190 pounds. He was also a running back, but a lot better than Eric Bieniemy was. He even led the league in 1985 in rushing touchdowns with 21 rushing touchdowns. And he won the Super Bowl the next year. So he played almost his entire career with the Giants and then finished with the Cleveland Browns. He had 4 years in which he was the team's starting running back, and he ended his career with about 5,500 rushing yards, 50 rushing touchdowns, and he also caught the ball a little bit, so he had about 1,000 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. And Joe is often considered one of the best running backs in the history of the New York Giants, and the Giants, of course, are a very historic franchise, and he holds a bunch of different Giants rushing records. Next is the first wide receiver on this list, and that is Jermaine Lewis. He was 5'7", 183 pounds, and he played most of his career with the Baltimore Ravens, and he won the Super Bowl with them. And while he was more of a third or fourth wide receiver on the team, he was an elite punt returner and led the league in punt return yards, average punt returns, and punt return touchdowns for multiple years.
Think fast, run fast, think fast, run fast.
And he was even an all-pro for being a punt returner. So while he never had more than 800 receiving yards in a year, he did make a big impact on the team. Then we have our first defensive player on this. It is Mark Mighty Mouse McMillan. And he's my favorite because, one, Mighty Mouse, great nickname, and it fits him perfectly. He is a cornerback who is 5'7", 154 pounds. That's crazy. And he played all throughout the 90s. Someone who's 154 pounds was likely at times guarding players like Jerry Rice. I mean, that's insane. He had to be so talented and so smart and completely fearless to stay in the NFL for almost a decade at that size, at that position. And he even had 23 interceptions and over 400 tackles. And he's actually a pretty good cook because he appeared in season 2 of Next Level Chef, which is a pretty decent cooking show by Gordon Ramsay. Then finally, last and definitely not least, actually last but best, Maurice JonesDrew. I had no clue that he was only 5'7". That kind of surprised me a little bit. He was 5'7", 210 pounds, and he was a great running back. He played in the NFL for 9 years and played the first 8 in Jacksonville. And just from my childhood, he's just one of the players that I remember being great. And I just had never realized that he was only 5'7", but that definitely did not stop him. Just getting into the NFL in 2006, he had 940 yards rushing, 13 touchdowns, 430 yards receiving, and 2 receiving touchdowns. He had an incredible rookie season, and that was with him only starting 1 game. So he started his career off great. And really, he just got better. He even led the league in rushing with 1,600 rushing yards in 2011. He owns pretty much all of the Jacksonville running back records and is probably the first player I think of when I think of Jacksonville, other than maybe Trevor Lawrence at this point. So if you watched my previous video on players who are 5'6" or shorter, and Darren Sproles really demolished the competition with that one, honestly, quite similarly, Maurice JonesDrew demolishes the competition of players who were 5'7". And sneak peek for the next one, at 5'8", there is also one player who stands out above the rest. But thanks for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing for more NFL content, and leaving a comment down below, maybe your favorite player who is 5'7". Thanks.